Imagine, every time you eat a piece of bread, you suffer from flatulence. Is this an allergy or a food intolerance? Let me explain. What is a food allergy? In case of allergy, the symptoms come immediately. Let's take the strawberry allergy as an example. This is one of the most common food allergies. You enjoy wonderful fine strawberries and 10 minutes later you get a swollen tongue or swollen throat. You get shortness of breath and maybe skin rash. And this only takes minutes between eating these strawberries and the discomfort that comes from it. This is an allergy. Fast, immediate symptoms. What are food intolerances? The symptoms take much longer. Let's say you have a food intolerance for gluten, a protein from wheat. Now you eat a tasty bread roll. 4 hours later, maybe 10 hours later, you feel a little abdominal pain, a bloated belly, and maybe some flatulence. It takes between 2 and 20 or even more hours until the colon reacts. These slow, over hours increasing symptoms are a sign for an intolerance. Now, what foods are we talking about? Number 1. Dairy products. I feel sorry for our local Swiss dairy farmers. I like the farmers, but our milk today is not easy to digest. It is the most intolerable food for people nowadays. There are 2 reasons why milk is hard to digest for humans. First, from a scientific point of view, the cows are not optimally nourished. A cow should eat grass and hay and nothing else. But for economic reasons, the cows eat soy, corn from the silo, or concentrated feed. This changes the milk. The other part is the milk processing, which is done in the factories. Milk is heated very rapidly for it to get pasteurized, or it is mechanically crushed to homogenize the milk, and both processes further damage and change the milk. These processes give rise to incompatible proteins such as lactoprotein or casein. The colon cannot properly process these proteins in the mucosa. It leads to chronic dilution of the intestinal mucosa, a chronic inflammation, through these dietary products. And it's not just for milk, this is also the case for yogurt, cottage cheese, and so on. And for Swiss people, it is difficult to explain that you should give up milk. We say we need milk. After all, our Swiss children cannot grow up without milk. Fortunately, this is not true, and we are not dependent on dairy products, because we have enough other sources for good proteins. Second, right after milk comes gluten. Gluten is a protein in grain and cereals, most notably wheat. Modern wheat has been overbred. In some cases, large bakeries use additional gluten to add to their dough. This increases the life of a loaf of bread, so it stays fresh a bit longer, but it harms people in their intestinal mucosa. Third, chicken eggs, nuts, and so on. Basically, you can have an intolerant reaction to any food. But again, milk, gluten, and chicken egg make up more than 90% of all food intolerances. If you do not know which food you react to, there is a blood test to check this. You take some blood and test for 200 or more foods in a food intolerance test. But the test is not very clear in my opinion. Gluten, milk, can always be recognized immediately. But there are many other foods where it is not quite clear whether or not there is a food intolerance. Now, how do you treat such an intolerance? In the first place, you need to cut out those foods that damage you and cause symptoms. That can be tough when you can't eat dairy anymore. It's not just milk, it's yogurt, cottage cheese, and cheese. This should then be avoided. That's already a big step for a lot of people. Or gluten intolerance means you have to eat gluten-free products. That is the #1 thing to do. You cannot do it without changing your diet. In addition, we need to restore your intestinal health. You will find a link below to a special video where I explain how you can obtain gut health in 2 phases with 6 different remedies. And you can do this even if you suffer from food intolerance. There is also a link below to a special page where you will find a therapy plan I made for you. I urge you to take steps for your health. You can help yourself. In summary, we cannot treat allergies. You have to give up these foods. Food intolerances. Here we also need some sacrifices. But with a bowel treatment, you can eventually overcome it over time. It is quite possible that after 2 to 3 years, you can tolerate some foods again, if you make sure your gut comes back to good health.
Den Darm richtig sanierst.